Okay, so here's your disc brake cylinder, caliper, whatever. See, this is the rebuild kit from Raybestos. And so basically, this one was sticking. It would stick and it'd be smoking down the road. I'm gonna take it apart. You take this off and you pump up the brakes. You get yourself a little jar and collect anything that comes out. What happens is when you take this off and you take the pad out, then this cylinder will pop out of there. That cylinder will pop out of there. You catch your excess brake fluid down here. And once you pull that out, you can clean it and inspect it. Now, this one was actually not too bad at all. Ideally, you want to grease or put brake fluid in there. I actually used a combination of Armor All and anti-seize lubricant in here. Ideally, you just want to lube everything in there with clean brake fluid. I did clean out a bunch of gunk inside there. Mainly it was inside the dust boot here. Now this dust boot, there's going to be on the inner seal, square cut, what they call them, square cut washer. That one, you know, the thing is nothing really looked bad. The cylinder here was not pitted, only slightly, and everything else looked pretty good. But the thing is, the brake was sticking, so I basically got one of these kits. I've already put the square seal inside, and let's see. So this is the square seal here. This is the square seal that goes inside. Sets about there inside that cylinder. And basically on this one, you set that square cut O-ring in there, and then you lube up the piston real good, and kind of work it in there. And actually what I did is I put the dust boot, the outer seal, on first before I push the piston in. And there's a kind of a sequence where you can loosen your brake filler up on top, where you fill the brake fluid. You loosen that cap so you got a little free, so you don't vacuum up in there. And so anyway, the tricky part was stuffing this ring. It's like a C-clamp ring that goes inside this part here on that dust boot. So it goes inside there. You just love my hands. There are dirtier things in life, you know. Anyway, that C-clamp goes inside here and right inside there. So you put it in, then the C-clamp goes on. It's a little tricky. I wrestled with it the other day and gave up. It was getting dark. And then this time I got it in within like 15 minutes. But it was a little tricky at first. But basically you want to push the piston down in like 90%. And then put that, you start the C-clamp. So you start it where it's supposed to go, and then you slowly push it around and end up out here. And then once you're out here, you can I have various screwdrivers that I use. I think I actually, this is the dollar store version that I used. And I finally got it in there. Now, hopefully that piston will go freely, move back and forth. Now these things here, these are the guides, whatever they slide on. You got to make sure that these sliders are free to move back and forth. And so what I did, I used this cleaner. It's electronic cleaner. You can use brake cleaner. Pull these out and clean them up real good, and then what I did is I used this inside there to make sure that those things were all lubed. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. You got to make sure that those things move freely. If they don't move freely, then you're going to have problems down the line. So that's your brake tip for today. Trip, whatever. And I hope you got lots of patience. These were like 40 bucks on Rock Auto. And so I figured, why should I pay another 40 bucks? I've got all the hardware here, you know. But the thing is these things here, I've cleaned them actually twice, and they still seem a little bit stiff. So I'm thinking maybe I should have paid the 40 bucks and got a new one, a new rebuilt one. But yeah, well, yeah, my suggestions, if I had 20/20 hindsight, whatever, I would have just got a rebuilt caliper and then scrapped this. I hate to see things get scrapped because, you know, it's like, it's not rusty or anything, you know, and it's just something minor. So, but I would recommend to just go ahead and get your whole rebuilt caliper rather than try and mess with a rebuilt kit. These were only like $7. The caliper, whatever, was like $40. So, you know, how much money do you want to spend? How much money do you want to save? How greasy do you want to get your hand? Okay, so what I use is this stuff here. Whatever high temperature silicone. I put it around here so it doesn't rattle. I got a mystery piece. I forgot where that piece went. I think it's an anti-rattle piece, but we'll see if it rattles. I'll save this. I'll look at the other side and see where this came off of and put it back together. But so I've actually managed to I used the C-clamp to press the cylinder back down. This was $2.95 special at the Hawk Shop, and so I managed to push that cylinder back down in there without doing much to manipulate the fluid. And all I did was loosen the cap on the brake fluid filler up above. And so, yeah. Okay, so you want to make sure, if you have a problem with your brake, you want to make sure that you don't have a clogged brake line itself. The way I could tell basically was if you pull this off, and or if you open the bleeder valve and you press on it, you should see a squirt of brake fluid coming out. If you don't see that, it's a slight chance you may have a clogged line. These lines can get rusty at the connections and cause a blockage inside the line. So definitely want to check that probably first thing before you dive into taking this caliper apart. Okay, last but not least, we need to bleed the brakes. So the way I usually do it is I will see, what you want to do is you want to make sure you got plenty of fluid. You can leave that loose and try and pump the brakes. Another way you can do this is you take like a Windex bottle with a spray nozzle, and supposedly you can make sure it's clean, take the sprayer off the Windex bottle, stick the neck or the little straw that goes down into the liquid, stick it here, and just squirt it, and it will suck out. As far as sucking goes, you could probably take like a rubber tube and start sucking it as well. But the way I normally do it is I will close it down and I'll go inside and I'll pump the brake and I'll stick like a brick on top of it so it's down. And then I'll open the valve here and let out any fluid and do that like 4 or 5 times, and that usually does it. Okay, so there's my little rig to keep the pressure on the brake pad and on the brake pad on the cylinder. And once I've done that a few times and make sure it's going to be weeping oil out of there, or excuse me, fluid, then I'm good. There it is, a little bit coming out, and we got a pretty good stiff brake pedal now. So yeah, just make sure and get all the bubbles out. It should be good.